Hi, and welcome to this episode of Rare Book Chat.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Michael.
You know, we've talked about books and things a lot among ourselves, entre nous. Is that what pompous people say?
Or just French people.
French people. Okay.
French people pompous?
So, I don't know. There's an elephant in the room that we've never quite addressed in all our conversations, and I think it's time. I think you're ready. I think I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Now, I don't want to impugn you without any data or any information. I don't want to make any assumptions.
I'm ready. What are you about to tell me?
I have a series of questions to ask you, and you do I have your word? You're going to answer honestly?
Yeah. Like, what's going on here? What's about to happen?
Anyway, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Number one, have you ever hoarded books or bought or collected books far beyond what you'll ever read?
Yes.
Yes.
I recently moved to a different house, and I actually made the decision to get rid of a lot of books, which I regret. But at the time, it made sense because I was like, I bought all these books. I read half of them. The other half, if I didn't read them 15 years ago, I probably won't read them. So there was a downsizing, pruning sort of phase I went through. And then having gone through it, I regret it. And so, yes, I have bought lots of books and read some of them.
That's good. Okay. Number two. Well, I had just a comment on that. We had a pipe burst a while ago in our basement, and it flooded and it destroyed all these books I had kept since college. Oh. And initially, I was so upset, and then I felt liberated.
Ooh.
I know, because I never would have gotten rid of them.
Yeah.
And then they were water-soaked messes. I was crushed.
Yeah.
My little stupid adolescent notes were in them. But I feel better now in retrospect.
I know, because you can frame it as an accident.
Yeah, I didn't deface the books.
And nobody anticipates a burst pipe.
0-degree weather did it.
It is foreseeable, but you can easily say, like, look, that was an act of God. Now I can move on with a clear conscience.
I was surprised that I felt liberated ultimately. Okay, one, you have collected or hoarded books. Hoarded is a loaded word. You've collected books far beyond what you can read. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Number two, have you ever bought multiple editions of the same book? For trivial differences.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, okay, you have. That's number two. Number three, have you ever modified your home in some manner for book storage?
Not like moving walls. But bookcases and stuff like that?
You must have. Yeah, come on.
Although I did, at one point, lease an apartment because of the bookshelves in the...
Yes, that's good. Yeah, I know exactly. I think I've been to that apartment. Yeah, that was built-ins.
Built-ins, right.
It's very awesome, yeah. I'm giving you a yes in that. You're 3 for 3.
Okay.
4, valuing books as objects more than content. Have you ever done that? Evaluate a book more as an object?
Of course.
Of course. That's
what we do.
Okay. Now this. So 4 already. I mean, there's 5 questions. You're already, getting a good grade on this.
Yeah.
5. Have you ever gone into debt or committed crimes? We can drop that part. Have you ever gone into debt to acquire books?
I think I could say yes to that.
Of course. That was started in this business.
Right.
Heavily in debt. It was buy some books and have 30 days to sell them before the debt collector comes. We've definitely done that.
Yes.
So, okay. If I were being honest with this, I would be 5 for 5 also here. And
so what's happened? What do we need to confess to now?
We have the traits of bibliomania.
Bibliomania.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. Is that a good thing or bad thing?
It's interesting because bibliomania is, it's a term that's been kicked around in the book trade for years and years and years. But you do come across people who are even further along on I think we'll use the word spectrum than either you or me. And we've run into them.
Yeah.
And these people can be real maniacs.
Maniacs, sure.
I at one point I was at
Wait, I have a question though. Do you suffer from bibliomania? We can get back to that. Right.
Do I or does one?
You can answer that any way you want.
Yeah, let's take. I don't want to be the central. It's a good question. I mean, does a maniac wish he or she wasn't a maniac? I mean, maniacs. It's like a leopard enjoys being a leopard.
That's good. You're right.
So I would say probably not until the the until the final reckoning. But that's, I mean, isn't that not the case of the human condition anyway?
Oh man, that's heavy.
Right? We're all doomed one way or the other, and you just kind of make the best of it until then.
You might as well be doomed with a lot of books around you. I interrupted you though. No, go back to what you were about to say.
Well, speaking of Maniacs, some years ago, I think we were exhibiting at a fair in Florida, or at a show. I don't think it was a book thing. It was like a art antiques thing.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah,
I don't know where you're going, but that was
okay.
Show.
There was there was a maniac there, and it wasn't me. And it was this guy. Who contacted me multiple times, or us, or whatever, and had this bunch of Hemingway books for sale. And he had a whole like collection of old first editions of Old Man and the Sea.
I remember that.
And they were all in pretty bad shape.
They were in the trunk of his car.
Yeah, no, of a van.
A van, yeah.
Yeah. And like if it had been if it had been known, or it made clear that the guy was living in the van, you wouldn't be surprised.
How many copies of Old Man and the Sea? Because you met him, I didn't.
At least 10. And many like other books that he had accumulated, but it wasn't a diverse group of books. It was like a couple of titles, some Steinbeck and whatever, and they were all in pretty poor shape. And he was in pretty bad shape himself. And the van was in terrible condition. It looked like something that had been used on an A-Team episode back in the 80s.
Bullet holes.
Not bullet holes, but dents, chipped paint. And it looked cool for that reason. And the whole thing, I was excited because I was like, maybe this guy has one or two good copies. But also, it was an experience that was invigorating in this weird way, because there we were at this posh exhibition hall surrounded in this room by probably hundreds of millions of dollars of like high value antiques and art.
Yeah, what were we doing there?
I don't know. But, and there I'm out in the parking lot of this venue, and there's this guy, and one thing I remember about him is his pants were falling down. Like,
I knew that was going up. I knew it.
One of those guys, you just like, you need a belt. But he was so disheveled in the most cinematic way. I was thrilled.
Cinematic.
It was cinematic. And like his shirt was untucked. He had this wild, crazy Einstein hair, and he was a delightful guy, like delightful. And in my, I'm not a professional.
I thought you were going to say we weren't delightful.
If I had to do a layman's diagnosis, I would say if there is such a thing as a bibliomaniac, here is a bibliomaniac.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that.
I met one. And I mean, there are other people we came across over the years that I think we, think, oh, this is.
Yeah, they're dealers who are bibliomaniacs.
Yeah, but I don't
think it's that strange.
I know.
We just concluded that you and I are bibliomaniacs.
Yeah, I know. But there's also there's the extreme case, and in the extreme case, when you identify the extreme case, then you can start to see the characteristics in less exaggerated cases, and then you start to see the pattern. That's how I think about it. I also know, I heard a story from a European book dealer about a collector that she was working with, and it was actually a sad, very tragic story of bibliomania. I think the guy, he succumbed to it.
Wow. I'm not sure what that means, but
well, it means it may not be a laughing matter.
No, it's not necessarily a laughing matter. I'd like to only think of it that way, but
well, there is this weird.
No, I mean we know stories, especially in New York City, of hoarders. Like people see their apartments. Someone dies and their apartment realizes it was like literally floor to ceiling stuff.
I know. Actually, bibliomania is recognized actually as an illness.
It is.
So that we have to tread with some, caution here, because
I was trying to before you derailed us.
Did I?
Think so.
I thought
Florida in parking lots.
That was. I mean, but I'll picture that, like a van in a parking lot. You're already off to the races. This has good literary material. The guy was. But he was a very affable maniac. I mean, if he was a maniac, he's my kind of maniac.
Yeah, you can be affable maniacs. I don't think those are mutually exclusive.
No, I know. I'm just saying there was no like menace about him. There was no. I felt fully at ease, and I enjoyed his company, and I enjoyed our conversation. I didn't buy anything from him, but I would have if there was anything nice enough.
Do you know there was this bibliomaniac, bibliomaniac. One can slide into the other. They're two sides of the same coin, maybe. But this guy, Richard Heber, he's kind of known in definitions of bibliomania. He owned at least 8 houses across Europe just to store his books. But the reason I bring him up, he apparently said something which is just brilliant. He said, quote, "No gentleman can be without 3 copies of a book, one for show, one for use, and one for lending."
Oh, wow.
Isn't that beautiful?
He's
not wrong.
No.
Right?
I mean, if he's talking about first editions, then that's an expensive proposition. But yeah, I like that idea.
Richard Heber. He lived from 1773 to 1833.
Wow.
3 copies of a book. That's what a gentleman needs.
Just exploring the words, bibliophile and bibliomaniac.
Oh, wait, can we not leave Richard?
Yeah, go ahead.
Poor Richard, or not, he was very wealthy. Wealthy Richard. I mean, really think about this. He's not crazy.
Well, also, there are libraries. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's not the same. I know.
But here's another twist. So the town I live in, they just opened a new library. Very beautiful, modern, wonderfully designed, architecturally interesting library. So I was there over the weekend and, just looking around. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful building. But when I saw the books with the stamps on them,
did you wince?
And I had this, I was with my daughter and she was excited, but I was looking at these books thinking, I don't want any, and I wouldn't say this, but I would not want to read any of these books because they've got.
You wouldn't want to read them.
No. And I felt this self-loathing of like, why am I such a hung up on the physical character? But I was like, I wouldn't want to read a book like that. I want to read a book that belongs to me, or the book that doesn't have marks and plastic on it. Wow. I just don't want that experience. And then I thought, that's horrible.
Wow. Okay. I'm having trouble agreeing with you because what got me into reading in books and things was, bookstores, yeah, but wandering around libraries. And the great thing, big university libraries, just wander. Boy, remember used to having free time, and you just turn the corner and you go among different stacks, and you're like, I didn't know this book existed. And you take a book off and you read for 10 minutes and you put it back and you grab another one and you just get lost in your head. And this is what a library is wonderful for. Yeah. But so that's my argument against you. But when I love a book, I want to see it on my shelf after I've read it.
Yeah.
And if I read it with the plastic and stamps and whatever, and then I go put it back, I return it to the library. Oh, I put it in a bin outside the library where it rattles around and gets damaged. That's how much respect I'm having for this book.
Yeah. And so we're talking about mania, but also love. But I think the library, I shared that library experience when I was a youth, but then that was before being in the book trade. And now I have this like distorted perception of books and as objects, and it's all become part of my thinking about books. And I can't get rid of that. That is now
you've become.
I've been contaminated by the rare book world.
No, but there's nothing like bringing kids to libraries and getting them excited about books. So you're wrong.
No, my daughter was excited, and I was excited about that. I was just thinking from my personal sort of like, would I want to borrow a book that has all these stamps on it, a plastic cover? And I was thinking, like, I don't really.
Can I tell another anecdote of a great bibliomaniac? That's what I should be saying. Okay. This is one of the great bibliomaniacs. It depends how you define great, but I'm just throwing it out there. Sir Thomas Phillips, 1792 to 1872.
God, you got this whole roster of maniacs you want to talk about.
I find them fascinating. I feel a little simpatico with them, so that's why I find them fascinating. Yeah. So he amassed over 100,000 manuscripts, 60,000 printed books, and his goal was this: he wanted to own one of every book in the world. Ultimately, his books were sold at auction after he died, and it took well over 100 years. And the last part of his estate was sold in 2006. He died in 1872.
Oh, wow!
Crazy? But anyway, the reason I'm bringing him up is when you picture a bibliomaniac and you picture a library of tens of thousands of books, what are you picturing?
Like a country manor.
A library.
Yeah.
Like a home library. Like just like you walk in and you feel like you're in a movie of 19th century England and, all right. But anyway, so Sir Frederick Madden, who was the keeper of manuscripts of the British Museum, visited Sir Thomas Phillips' house. Okay. He wrote in his diary, The house looks more miserable and dilapidated every time I visit it. And there's not a room now that is not crowded with large boxes full of manuscripts. The state of things is really inconceivable. Lady P is absent, and were I in her place, I would never return to so wretched an abode.
Oh, wow.
Every room is filled with heaps of papers, manuscripts, books, charters, packages, and other things lying in heaps under your feet, piled upon tables, beds, chairs, ladders, etc., etc., etc. And in every room, piles of huge boxes up to the ceiling containing the more valuable volumes. It's quite sickening. The windows of the house are never opened, and the close, confined air and smell of the paper and manuscripts is almost unbearable.
I can imagine that smell.
Yeah. I mean, come on. That's no stately library.
No. That's evidence. That's evidence of mania.
That makes me sad about a certain state of collecting.
Yeah, but it's also interesting to think of, like, what's that maniac's role? This guy might have played a role in preserving materials and manuscripts that would never have otherwise been preserved. And so that if you have this odd figure who is a maniac and is a bibliomaniac, maybe there is some role played by that character type.
You're right. I like that. He served a role, and ultimately his books, he preserved them.
Yeah.
They were just in random boxes that were surrounded by must, and they eventually made it back to the market.
Well, it makes me think of Star Wars and Han Solo.
What?
Yeah, because of the Millennium Falcon, right? And it was like this junk ship, and Han Solo and Chewbacca were ferrying, Luke and the Princess Leia around the galaxy and saved them, preserved them. But they did so.
Preserved them.
Yeah, right. Stewardship is what I'm getting at. And so they did so in this, and they would always talk about his ship.
Yeah, a heap of junk.
Like a heap of junk, right? But he got the job done. And likewise with this maniac you're describing.
Can we be kind, though? Because,
I think I'm being very kind.
You are, but I'm really referring to myself because I'm talking about collectors as maniacs. But you don't have to be a maniac.
No, but it's a type. I mean, they're out there.
I can't believe though we both failed the test.
Yeah. Well, I mean, self-selecting group. The Eagles. I used to live in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia sports fans are known for just being complete like lunatics. And one of the things I say about the Philly sports fans is that after they win the World Series or the Super Bowl, they celebrate by destroying their town.
Yeah, well, the famous story of throwing snowballs at Santa Claus.
No, I don't know that one.
Oh, there was Santa Claus was on a float at some point during some game in, I don't know, the 80s, and everybody started booing him and throwing snowballs at him at an Eagles game.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, what is the point? No, but because
you're alienating a lot of people right there.
I don't know. I know people from Philadelphia love this. I mean, this is right. So this is.
I don't know if you're right.
And Philadelphia is a great city. It's a great town. It's a wonderful place. Restaurants, sports, all that stuff. But like it's a self-selecting. I was talking about you going to
that
a
is
sports
a difficult point. Okay.
I think I just wanted to bring that up just because it for me it ties in with the connection of passion, mania, and destructiveness.
Okay, you're right.
They have to grease the light poles, the street lights in Philadelphia, before major sports events.
Yeah,
if Game 7 of the World Series is being played and the Phillies are in it, they're going to grease the light poles so that maniacs won't celebrate a win by climbing up these light poles and then like hanging off them and getting themselves killed. That's what they do in Philadelphia.
Okay, so your point, can I rein you in? Your point. What is your point? No, your point is that you can be a fan and not a maniac. You can be a book collector without a maniac. Is that your point?
Yeah. But if you run into my point is also if you are say you're a sports fan, Eagles or whatever your teams are, and you go to a sports bar or you go to a sporting event and you run into some true fanatics, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Philly fanatics, yeah. Right? You run into a fanatic, you shouldn't be surprised. I mean, if you're hanging out in a library and you run into a Philly fanatic, you might be like, what is he doing here or she doing here? But if you're in a sporting environment and you run into a fanatic, you're like, yeah, they're fanatics everywhere. And so that's my point to you about the book world. It's like, yeah, they're maniacs everywhere. You fit the bill.
Oh, that's your point.
Yeah, that's my point. It's a self-selecting. I mean, we're in this, we have all chosen to congregate in this weird space. And so if you bump into a few maniacs, if you bump into a guy in a parking lot in Florida and he happens to be driving around this beat up van and his pants are falling down, but he's got 20 copies of Old Man to See, like, don't be surprised, you know? Like, you signed up for this. That's what I'm saying. You didn't see him coming per se, but they're out there. That's to bring it all back. That's my point.
That was so. The unsavory aspect is there have been a lot of crimes that have been committed in the name of bibliomania.
There has been some really interesting crimes in the rare book business, but one bust involved the Canadian Mounties. What do you think about that?
They did. That's a story for another time. That was exciting, though.
Recovering books on horses? That's cool.
Not sure that was the exact situation.
I know, but once you say Canadian Mounties,
there was a Mountie who helped us. Okay, so the bibliomaniacal aspect of the crime is what's interesting. Can I tell you a story?
Sure.
So there was this guy, Don Vincente, in the early 19th century.
It's a great name.
Yeah, he loved books. He became obsessed with books.
Yeah.
He was a monk, and the rumor has it that he started stealing from the monastery, or had people steal from the monastery, and kind of just look the other way because they were in cahoots. And he amassed a rare book collection, of course. Ill-gotten gains, something like that. But anyway,
hold on. Can I stop you right there? When you say he amassed a book collection of stolen material, there's something funny there, because it's like, oh, this is my collection. It's not like my loot, but
Yeah. It's a collection there. Maybe it's a collection if he cultivated it. He didn't just steal willy-nilly.
Yeah, but also if you have a bunch of bandits hiding out in a cave, they don't say like, look at my collection of money, my collection of dollars.
That's true. But here's the whole point of this story is for the ending. Okay, so stay with me here.
I'm with you.
So he started buying books too, and he even had a rare bookstore. And he was at an auction, and he wanted this book really badly because it was in 1836, and it was being marketed at the auction as the only copy by Spain's first printer of the Edicts and Ordinances of Valencia. Okay, his own copy. So furious bidding, he gets outbid, and he is very upset.
I know the feeling.
So, yeah. So what do you do in those situations? No? Okay. Well, do you burn your rival's house down?
No.
Well, that's what he did. He burned his rival's house down.
Did he?
With people inside, and they all died. So I shouldn't be laughing about this.
That's not funny.
That's not funny. Yeah, all for the book. Well, the question then is, he was a suspect, clearly. So the police raided his home, and they found the book.
Wow.
So what do you think? That's pretty damning evidence.
Open and shut case?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but here's the good part. So at his trial, his lawyer, as a defense, says, well, there was more than one copy of this book. I know of a copy in France. I think there's one in Italy, blah, blah, blah. And old Don Vincente started freaking out. There's more than one copy of the book. There's more than one copy of the book. There can't be more than one copy of the book. This has to be the only copy. I have the only copy of the book. He starts just freaking out. And apparently he got fixated on that and kept saying it over and over. He was led to his execution, rumor has it, still muttering, no, there has to be only one copy of the book. There has to be only one copy of the book. So his lawyer is using evidence that it may not be the same copy. And he'd rather be executed than admit that.
So if not for the auction catalog description claiming that it was the only copy of the book, old Don might have taken a different path. Because instead of burning down the house and killing these poor people in pursuit of the only copy, Don might have thought like, well, maybe I'll go to Austria, wherever the other copies are located, and track that down.
Burn their houses down.
Or maybe obtain the volume some other way.
Isn't that a great story?
It just shows you the importance or the risks inherent in sloppy cataloging.
Well, no. I don't know if I believe the lawyer. We don't know if the lawyer's true. Well, the whole story may be not true.
Let's relocate to the realm of fiction. It's much better if the lawyer does say this, and it's even better still if it is true, because then Don goes off to his execution muttering.
Probably is true.
So let's assume it's true.
Which part? The lawyer part?
The lawyer part. Let's assume that it's true.
He probably did his due diligence.
He did his due diligence and assume that there were other copies. And it would not be at all surprising for an auction house to make a claim like that and then later find out that, other copies were extant, because that's what happens when you see a high price at auction, something really extraordinary surfaces, makes a lot of money, and then whoever's been sitting on a copy for 20 or 30 or 40 years, they think, well, it's my time to sell.
That's exactly what happens.
Next thing you know, you got 4 copies on the market. So
that happens today.
Yeah. So it's entirely possible that the lawyer was right, and that the Don's high profile crime and the auction result was what prompted the lawyer to make the discovery that there were additional copies.
You're right, because if that doesn't bring a copy out, nothing's going to bring a copy out.
Nothing's going to, right?
That's an excellent point.
The only problem with this theory is if owning a copy of this book puts you in harm's way, you might want to lay low about it. But if the culprit, Don, has been apprehended, then you might...
Yeah, you're fine then.
You're kind of fine. How many Dons are there going to be?
Yeah. But the whole problem with this story is it may not be true. It was reported as true in France throughout the 19th century, but then some people did some digging and they're like, I don't know. They couldn't find the evidence. The court case. Flaubert wrote a story about it. It's published posthumously. So I don't know. Is it true? I want it to be true.
You want it to be true.
Still debated whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, kind of stepping back from the joking around, but I'm thinking about the strangeness that you do come across with certain collectors, and you know, you just get fixated on something and you go down a rabbit hole and you become very educated on this maybe very narrow topic, and then you're seeking books out and materials and manuscripts, and then now you're kind of making discoveries that have not been would not otherwise have happened, and it's all kind of driven by this, I don't know, this odd acquisitiveness that overlaps with, you know, culture and history and so forth. And like, in any one case of a maniac, of a maniac's journey, the arc of a maniac, you start out like you're dabbling in books. Next thing you know, you're a maniac. If you take any one of those,
is that how it works?
Yeah. If you take any one,
you look the other way. Oh, now I'm a maniac.
No. But it's a slippery slope, and sometimes it can happen quite rapidly.
Happen when you least expect it.
That's right. You wake up one morning, you realize, you know, surrounded by books, and your bank account's empty.
Floor's cracking.
Yeah, right. You know, but if you take any one of those maniacs and you say, like, this is just another case of bibliomania, right? Any case might be dismissed as just kind of an aberrant thing. But if you take a lot of cases of these maniacs out there amassing really interesting collections, and then over time you allow those collections to, you know, make their way into institutions or make their way into catalogs, so that now there's maybe a new perspective on collecting or a new perspective on historical materials, because this one person, you know, had this narrow laser focus for this number of years and created a new like repository of not just materials, but also information on materials. Like, if you, in the aggregate, all those maniacs are probably doing a great service to not just to our trade, but to...
I don't know. You're implying that maniacs have a focus in their collecting, and I'm sorry, not collecting. What collecting implies...
Some do.
They're acquiring.
I would say
looting.
some do.
They're eluding.
No, you're talking about the criminal maniacs.
I am.
I'm just talking about your average nut job who's a book collector and just can't quit buying stuff and acquiring. No, you don't do that to me. Don't make that face.
Wait, I don't think it's good to call book collectors nut jobs.
No, you take your average maniac. Let's just say, you know, we're referring to people who suffer from bibliomania.
Suffer.
But what I'm trying to suggest is that there's a nobility in the pursuit, as long as we're not talking about violence or criminality. And I'm thinking about these questing collectors who, you know, harm no one, hopefully, and do exhibit these really extraordinary passions. And sometimes they put collections together in ways that would not otherwise have happened if it was a more moderated sensibility behind it. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. A lot of maniacs are the ones who produce the great bibliographies later, because they have 1 million copies of something in all different variations. And then we look at them later and go, oh my gosh, I'm so glad this person existed.
Right.
When I'm looking at their work. Well, that's a good point. There was this guy, Stephen Blumberg, and he's kind of known as the most successful, if successful is the right word, book bandit. I think that was his nickname. The book bandit. That was his nickname, the book bandit. And he apparently stole 23,600 books, give or take.
Wow.
Yeah, around the 1980s, 1990s. He stole because he didn't think the institutions that he was stealing from were taking care of the books well enough.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was afraid for the book's survival. Now, of course, he's probably delusional because I think he just kept them who knows how he kept them. Versus an institution. But in his mind, there was real. So, yeah, he wasn't making money. He was stealing and hoarding to protect culture.
I think as a community, we kind of want to sort of scapegoat the maniac and say, oh, there's another crazy person. They've just got a house full of books and they spent their whole life doing this. And, but maybe we all have some of that, a lot of it.
It's an energy.
Yeah, we should be looking at these figures as like they're the most purest manifestation of something that the rest.
Too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Who cares?